Illinois has quietly built one of the absolute biggest and most complex gambling empires in the entire country. And it's an industry that goes way beyond just casinos. So we're going to break down how this high-stakes game got built, who's making the rules, and what the state might be betting on next.
First things first, let's just talk about the sheer scale here. To really get how big this is, just look at this number. In the last fiscal year, Illinois raked in over $2 billion in tax revenue from gambling. Just from gambling. I mean, that is a massive amount of money that helps pay for everything from public schools to fixing roads.
So that brings up a huge question, right? How on earth did Illinois create such a profitable market? And maybe more importantly, for any operators who want in, what does it actually take to get a seat at that table? Let's unpack it.
So what makes Illinois such a gambling giant? Well, when you think about gambling, you're probably picturing those big, flashy Las Vegas-style casinos. But in Illinois, the reality is, it's everywhere. It's way more spread out and just kind of woven into everyday life. And here's the real key to their model. Get this, there are over 44,000 legal gaming machines all across the state that are not inside a casino. So, where are all of them?
Well, they're called video gaming terminals, or VGTs for short. The easiest way to think about them is like little mini casinos tucked away in the corners of your local bar, a restaurant, or even a truck stop. And believe me, that one policy decision completely changed the state's gambling landscape, making it pop up in thousands of neighborhood spots.
But of course, this didn't just happen overnight. The state's whole journey from backroom betting to this highly regulated, tech-heavy market, well, it's been a long and very deliberate process, built one piece at a time over many decades. So, the expansion really happened in a few key stages. It all kicked off with the state lottery way back in 1974. Then came the iconic riverboat casinos in 1990. But the real game changer? That was the Video Gaming Act in 2009, which put all those VGTs in local spots. And then most recently, the Sports Wagering Act in 2019 opened the floodgates for betting right on your phone. Every one of those laws added another profitable layer to the whole industry. Okay, so with all these different ways to gamble, you can bet there has to be a pretty strict rule book, right? So let's take a look at the current regulations and see how this whole machine works. Now, here's the most important distinction you need to know. What you can do versus what you can't. Sports betting, VGTs, casinos, the lottery, all legal, all regulated. But, and this is a really key detail, online casinos and online poker are still a no-go. And that actually puts Illinois a step behind states like New Jersey or Pennsylvania in that specific department. So who's enforcing all these rules? Well, it basically comes down to three main groups. The big one, the most powerful, is the Illinois Gaming Board, or IGB. They oversee pretty much everything: casinos, VGTs, sports betting, you name it. Then you have the Racing Board, which, as you can guess, handles horse racing. And finally, the Lottery Division runs the state lottery. So you've got this huge market, you've got these super strict rules. You can probably guess that getting a license to operate isn't going to be cheap. In fact, the price of entry is, well, it's sky high.
Just to launch an online-only sports betting app in Illinois, the initial non-refundable license fee is a staggering $20 million. That is one of the highest entry fees in the entire country. It's basically a massive financial wall that's designed to weed out everyone but the major corporate players.
And oh, the costs don't stop there. Just to keep your license, you have to shell out another $1 million every 4 years. It's a system that makes sure only the really well-funded, serious operators can stay in the game for the long haul.
All right, so the market's established, the rules are pretty clear, but things are definitely not standing still. Let's talk about where this whole industry is heading, starting with some very, very recent changes.
Yeah, one of the biggest shakeups lately has been all about taxes. Up until the middle of 2024, sports betting revenue was taxed at a nice, simple 15% flat rate. Well, not anymore. Now, the state has a progressive tax, with rates that start at 20% and climb all the way to 40% for the biggest earners. It's a huge hike, and it's designed to pull in a lot more money for the state. And what's the official reason? Well, here's what Governor J.B. Pritzker had to say about it. He said, "We had a much lower tax rate than many of the largest of those markets, and we're just kind of bringing ourselves more in line, but at a lower rate." So he's basically positioning it as Illinois just catching up to what other big states are doing while still trying to be competitive. With sports betting taxes going up, everyone's attention is now turning to the next potential gold rush, online casinos. This whole industry, often called iGaming, is really the one major piece of the puzzle that's still missing in Illinois.
And why is there so much buzz about it? Well, in a word, money. Projections are suggesting that legalizing online casinos could bring in something like $450 million in tax revenue in the first year alone. For a state that's always on the hunt for new cash, a number like that is pretty much impossible to ignore.
So let's zoom out for a second. If you're a company looking at Illinois, the trade-offs are pretty clear. The pros are huge, right? A massive base of players and really high revenue potential. But the cons are just as big. Super strict regulations, those high costs, and a key market, online casinos, that's still locked up.
At the end of the day, Illinois offers one of the most profitable gambling markets in the nation, but it demands that you have deep pockets and can navigate a really complex, constantly changing rulebook. It is a true high-stakes game, not just for the operators, but for the state itself.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought here. In a multi-billion-dollar industry where there's so much on the line, for businesses, for public funding, the decisions about who gets a license, how much they have to pay, and what games are even legal, well, it all becomes about so much more than just entertainment. It really makes you ask, how does a state truly decide who gets to play?